So, Mr. Morris, everybody kind of knows your story. I'm sure you're probably sick of repeating it, but um, the the basic gist of the story is you were a you had a little bit of a minor league baseball history when you were about 19 years old. Then kind of got plagued with injuries, like a lot of athletes do. Then you decide to be a grown up, come back home, be a teacher, have a family. You were a chemistry teacher, which uh, I tried chemistry, and that's completely over my head. So more power to you. You're a smarter man than I am. But
I don't know about all that.
you were a baseball high school. You were a high school baseball coach. They were kind of a fledgling team, and
Yep.
you kind of had a come to Jesus meeting with them and said, "Look, uh, you guys got to do better. What do I have to do to motivate you?" And they kind of said, in not so many terms, "Well, how do you expect us to be motivated when you don't even kind of lead by example yourself?" And so you kind of made it. Was it a spoken promise, or I mean, you want to take over the story from there?
He probably knows it better than you do.
Yeah, you. I know. I'm talking too much. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead,
No,
Jim.
you're fine. No, it's strange because even with the movie and the book and everything that's been out, everybody reads what they want to read. And so they'll hear the story and it's just a little bit different to every person. Um, Absolutely in person bet with the kids. And, when I pushed them, they pushed back. We became better as a team. And that's what I wanted because I don't think that the kids on the field are not the team. That's part of the team. And the kids on the bench and the people who need to be prepared to go in, the coaches who need to be on top of their game, the parents who come to cheer us on, the people who keep score, who come over the loudspeaker and talk about the game. Those are all a part of our team. And I wanted to push the kids as hard as I could. And the funny thing is that bet came into being because of another coach on the staff who happened to be the head football coach. And one day he stopped me on my way to practice in 1999 where the story takes place. And he goes, "You've taken these kids as far as you can. These kids are losers. Their parents are losers. They're never going to amount to anything. If it's ever close or they're ever behind, they will find a way to lose." And as another coach and a man and somebody responsible for these kids, I just sat there thinking, and they put you in charge of all the coaches and all the kids. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
two of my kids are around the corner changing and they heard it. This
Oh,
guy destroyed 2 years of work in 90 seconds.
wow.
And so the first two games are just like in the movie, 15-1, 15-0, we get run ruled. And so after the second one, as a person of faith, I'll tell whoever wants to listen to me, I see my kids down the left field line. I stood on home plate and I just said a prayer. I said, what can I do to push these kids and not push them away? How can I get them to rise up to the occasion when they've never, ever had anybody to want that out of them ever? How can I push them without breaking them? What can I do? What can I say? And the answer came back very clearly. Go down there and talk about your grandfather and what your grandparents did for you. We need some unity. We need a family, and your grandparents are the best example you've ever had in your life. And so that's what I did. I walked down there. Nobody's looking at me. They're all looking at the ground. If you guys have seen the movie, it took a long time to grow grass because the deer kept eating it. And so I look at the kids and they're looking at the ground. They're picking my grass. And number one, that made me mad. And I thought, you're going to run? No, I and they just had this downcast look on their faces, all of them. And nobody wanted to make eye contact, even with each other. And so I just started talking about hopes and dreams and goals. And I said, you guys have to go out and live life. You can't let life live you. Don't let anybody dictate to you what you're going to do with your life. And 20 minutes in, they're all engaged. They're all looking at me. They're smiling. They're giggling. And I said, I want you guys to go out and be the best you can be in whatever it is you want to do. If you want to go to college, go to college. If you want to play baseball after high school, play baseball. But your education is important. This program is important because we're learning how to respect the game that has been played for so long in this country. And if we're going to do it, we're going to do it the right way. We may not be good, but we're going to look good being bad. And all this stuff just started coming out. I said, Coach, we know. We love you, but we think you still want to play baseball. And I said, I'm 35 years old. I got hurt when I was 24 and walked away from the game. Never had a second thought about it, didn't care. Had a surgery at 28 in which the surgeon said, you will never, ever pitch again. Physically impossible. It can't be done. 85% of my deltoid gone. And by the way, all your moms cook fresh homemade tortillas for me every time I get on a bus to drive you guys somewhere. I look like a baseball scout, not a baseball player. And, they're giggling. They said, but Coach, the way you teach us the game, we know your heart's still in it. You teach us how to act and react to every situation that could ever come up. We know what the other team's going to do before they do it. When you throw us batting practice, we can't hit it. And I said, that's because you can't hit. And that made him giggle too.
But that ended up not being the case. I mean, turns out you were throwing pretty hard, right?
Yeah, and they go, well, if we start winning, you try out again. And I said, I can't do that. The doctor said impossible. It can't be done. Coach, what if we win a district championship, which this group of kids have never been a part of a baseball championship anywhere? If you win a district championship, I will find a tryout. In the back of my head, I'm thinking this is going to be embarrassing and humiliating, and your wife's going to kill you. So I didn't tell her, and we're going to go from there. And 3 months, we start winning. Then we start winning by a lot, and then I forget about the bet. And then these kids are hitting me all over the field, and I can't get high school kids out. And we end up getting knocked out of the playoffs after we won a district championship by a kid who couldn't throw out a wet paper bag. I mean, because they were out in front of everything. So they win the district championship. We're down by 2 in the last inning. They score 6. They hold the other team to 0. We win 7-3. It's one of the best sights I've ever seen in my life. I'm watching a group of kids celebrate an accomplishment that not even they thought they could accomplish. And at 35, because men are slow, I finally realized what it was my grandfather was trying to teach me as I grew up. Because when you're a teenager, everything is very personal. It's all about me, and I want what I want when I want it. And I came to the conclusion of what my grandfather meant, and it meant the world to me. It's not about me, it's about we. It's about exactly what I'd been teaching. It was about teamwork. It was about being a family. It was about lifting each other up and not tearing each other down. And those kids were a part of it. And because of those kids, I ended up going back to a tryout, throwing 12 to 14 miles an hour harder than I ever have in my life with control. And all of a sudden I've got a slider. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Scout is beside himself. He goes, I saw you at Ranger Junior College. You were a football star. Everybody wanted to make a picture out of. And I said, yes, sir. He goes, well, I don't know what you've done your time off aside from eat. I'm like, dude. He goes, but you're throwing, your first pitch without warming up was 94. Now ask me why I didn't warm up.
Why didn't you warm him up, Jim?
Nobody would play catch with me. All the other kids are looking at me like I am out of my mind. I'm old. I've got 3 of my kids there. They're 8, 4, and 1. And I look completely out of place on the field. I should have been in the stands with my kids. But because I made a promise, here I am. And so I just said, look, I don't want to embarrass myself anymore. And this is going to happen. Let me throw. Let me get out of here. That's it. And last one to try out, everybody's putting their stuff in the cars. I start pitching. And all of a sudden, the players who are putting stuff in their car start coming back over by the backstop. And then their parents did. See, I'm a parent, and their parents are my age. That's awesome. And so before I know it, everybody who was at the tryout is behind the backstop. And the scout, Gasaway, he looks at this kid and he goes, hey, get a bat and get in there. And the first hint I had of anything was this kid looked at him. He goes, you want me to get in there against that? Maybe I'm throwing pretty good. And, all the young kids threw like 20 pitches and I get up to 60. I think they're making fun of the fat old guy, and that's me. I'm like, okay. I get done. He walks over to me and he goes, you're left-handed. You throw 98 and your ball moves like crazy. He said, You were 35 when you drove up here. So when you get a phone call from the front office, you're now 32. I'm like, what? He goes, do not tell them you're 35 until they see you pitch. I said, all right. I go home. They want me to come back and throw in 2 days. I call my high school kids. Now, this is the difference between walking the walk and talking the talk, right? I tell my kids, if I do good, they want me to sign a contract and go back and play baseball at 35. Coach, you told us if we ever had our dream in front of us, you chase it no matter what. And I said, I was lying. And so they come back, and half my kids are there. My kids are there again also. It's raining so bad they had to hand us a brand new baseball every single pitch, sliding up to my knee in mud, 98 every pitch. Signed a contract, minor league contract. I took a pay cut from teaching to go play minor league baseball. It was awesome.
Wow. That's
No
crazy.
kidding.
I got a question for you. Now, you said they were giving you a hard time. They wouldn't play catch with you. When you got called up to the majors, what was the reaction like there? I mean, did people know your story coming in? Everybody's more or less closer to your age, I would think, a little bit in the majors. So was it just kind of business as usual? Did anybody say anything to you?
It was you have this dream when you're a 5-year-old kid. Like, I want to be a big league ball player. And then you don't get it till you're 35 and you know what failure means. You know what life means. You know what raising a family means. And then your dream comes back to you again and you get to be a kid again for a little bit. That is the best time I've ever had in my life. We come back to my home state of Texas, haven't been home in 3 months. I'm in the big leagues. I have to sign my contract before I can walk into the clubhouse. Immediately, they give me 10 days worth of meal money that is more money than I made in 2 months teaching. And I thought, I could get used to this. And I walk in and they've been hearing about the crazy science guy all summer, right? And the first person to come up to me, guys, is Wade Boggs.
Oh, wow.
And he hugs me, he goes, man, that is the best story I've ever heard in my life. And I look at him and I'm still a coach and a fan. I'm like, you're Wade Boggs and you like chicken. And he laughed at me and he walked off. Roberto Hernandez, Fred McGriff, Jose Canseco, and unbelievable. Fred McGriff is probably one of the best dads I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
And
That's
just
awesome.
this calm character who would go out and hit the ball a mile and just mash. And Jose Canseco, you hear all these horror stories about everything. He was as nice as he could be to me. We did a card show about a year ago, and I haven't seen him in 20 years. And he comes up and he hugs me. He goes, "Do you remember me?" I'm like, dude, you're Jose Canseco. You're as big as a wall. Come on. He starts giggling, and then we sit by each other and sign. But it was the best walking into that clubhouse and just being accepted. That was cool.
That's really cool. That's awesome, Jim. I wanted to make sure we got a plug in for your
new book.
I was going to say the speeches first because how I first learned about you was going to college at Central Michigan University, and you probably don't remember this at all, but a few years back you came to my school and you spoke. And to me, I saw a lot of really cool people speak while I was in college, but you were one of the most memorable, and you just had such a great story and such a positive message. And, at the time I didn't watch The Rookie because I was a college kid, and that's a Disney movie and whatever, but after
it's G-rated, man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my God, and after watching your speech, it was like inspiring. I wanted to get up and do something. So the first thing I wanted to do was go to the video store and rent The Rookie. So I did that and watched the movie, and then wanted to go and do something myself. And now today, hearing your story again and being inspired by you again, I'm a 37-year-old lefty myself, and I'm getting ambitious ideas. Like, I can go out there and try out for the Dodgers or something. Probably a really bad idea, though, I'm going to say. So anyways, what are you doing now? I know everything's like shut down across the country. I imagine you're not traveling or anything. Are there plans to go on another tour, another speaking tour or anything anytime soon?
I don't know about anytime soon. I'm about in the same boat as you guys. I'm just like, when and where is the top of the water so I can get my head above it?
Sure.
But yeah, we're going to keep speaking. I actually did a speech last week, virtual speech, and I know I'm going to get blamed for COVID for this, but 2 years ago, my wife and I are flying around. I look at her, I go, man, I'm tired of traveling. What if we started looking into these virtual talks?
Yeah.
And I have no idea about social media or any of that stuff. And then COVID hits, and guess what? You're going to do virtual talks. And so we've navigated over into that. And it's just not the same thing as like being in front of you guys.
Right. Yeah.
If I'm at Central Michigan and I'm in front of everybody, the feedback from the audience is better. And then it feeds me, and then I feed it back into you guys, and everybody gets charged. Sitting at home with a dress jacket on and my running shorts because I'm going to go run after I talk is just kind of getting old, man. I don't even know if my pants fit anymore. It's just ridiculous. And so, yeah, I'm still speaking, and there are people who are lining stuff up. And I'm going to tell you, I think one of the first in-person engagements we have is not until June.
Okay.
And maybe April, but that's the earliest. And people are still scared to death because they don't know what they don't know. And we don't know if we're getting the truth. So,
yeah, exactly. Understandable. Well, and you're right. It's not the same as like being there in real life. It's like going to a live concert or going to a live baseball game or football game or whatever. It's just a completely different feel versus the virtual thing. So, yeah.
absolutely.
Now, Jim, you got a new book titled Dream Makers out. Can you go into that a little bit as to what that is about? From my understanding, I haven't read it, I'll be honest, but it's like your life after baseball and some of the lessons you've learned and stuff. Kind of,
Yeah.
they compare it to like a sequel to The Rookie, but I guess I want to hear from your own words what exactly, what that entails.
Well, I'll tell you, for 20 years, people wanted me to write a book. And one of the most asked questions I got was, we love the story. Dennis did great. We love baseball, but what have you done since then? And in 2001, with the Dodgers, I went from LA at Chavez Ravine, where I'm working out with the guys before spring training. And in 5 days, driving from LA to Florida, where they still had spring training at that time, something happened where I couldn't even play catch. And I'm looking at guys and I can't judge the ball. And the guy who's a coach and teaches kids how to bunt can't even bunt. And now I'm in the National League. What am I going to do if I can't put a bat on the ball? And it got scary. And I thought, if I throw the ball up there at 100 and somebody hits it back at me, what am I going to do? And I ended up quitting, and I told people my arm hurt. But the truth was, I was scared to have a ball hit back at me. I didn't know what was going on. And it took us probably 40 surgeries and finally the right doctor, who was a butthead, but he told us how it was. And he said, you have CTE-induced Parkinsonism, which quickly blossomed into Parkinson's. I couldn't smell, I couldn't taste. It got to the point where I couldn't even button my dress shirts or tie my tie. My balance was off, and I had horrific headaches and just pain. And he said, it's just going to get worse. And he put me on medicine. Well, the medicine worked, and I could function and I could cook again. But then it tore my stomach up, and then I had to have gastric bypass. And so the 20 years after the story is a culmination of a lot of things, because you guys know what we've been through this year, culturally and every way, other way.
Yeah.
Through all those surgeries and a chronic illness. Chronic illness doesn't care about what color you are, or what language you speak, or if you're rich or if you're poor. If you get chronic illness, you get a chronic illness. And the doctors were giving me opiates at a time when opiates were real big. I never abused them, but I took them. That didn't work. My pain was still horrific. So I thought, since I have my MD, I will drink vodka with my pills and see if that helps. And then I isolate myself, and then my face starts to fall away from the church. And then we get to Christmas 2016. All this, before I get to it, for 20 years, I did not have an ending for the book. I had everything up till then, but I didn't have an ending. And because of my faith, I know this God has a sense of humor. He goes, Well, if you want one ending, how about two? All right, God, here we go. 2016, I don't remember the week of Christmas at all. Don't remember who was at my house. Don't remember doing anything. My doctor had given me anxiety medication because we had everybody coming in. So now I'm on pain pills, anxiety medication, and alcohol. I put the anxiety medicine in with my pain pills. And where there was supposed to be one every 8 hours, I took two every 4. And so the anxiety medication combined with the opiates and the alcohol, I don't remember. I woke up at rehab in Florida, and I call that the last resort for the last resort. But that was also the beginning of a lot of healing. It was the first time in my life where I got to sit back and look at how I got here. I'd been busy with the family and with work and in baseball and teaching and coaching, and never really concentrated on fixing the problems that I had as a kid growing up with an abusive father. And now all of a sudden you're confronted with it and it's right in front of you. And I walk into our counselor, he was the preacher there, and he loves baseball. He has mementos from every stadium in the country. It's cool. And he pulls me and he goes, love the story, love the movie. Why are you here? And I said, well, I isolated myself and I kind of lost my faith. He said, well, I said, where? He goes, where's Jesus? And I said, it's right next to me, man, yeah, all the time. He goes, so you're saying Jesus is your co-pilot? I said, yeah, man, he's with me. He goes, if Jesus is in a car with you, why is he not driving? And I don't know why that hit me. And I just went, huh. At the same time, we have ladies at our church. They're prayer warriors. They're my girls. They don't want to be called women. They don't want to be called ma'am. They're 50 to 90. They're my girls. And they've been with Sean and I through all the surgeries. They prayed about everything. They prayed through rehab. I'm watching everybody at rehab get sick, violently ill, coming off everything. I don't detox at all. I am perfectly fine through all of it. And I start exercising again. And then when I get home, my left leg almost quits working. And so we go back to the neurologist and she goes, it's just Parkinson's, it just happens. So I'm not making facial gestures. Try being a motivational speaker when you sit here like this and you don't have, my girls notice that, they're like, you don't make any expressions anymore. I mean, it got really bad. So I'm dragging my leg around the block just to get exercise. My mom, my elderly mother, buys me a cane so I can walk around the block. I go to my neurosurgeon. He goes, it's not in your back. It's not your leg. He goes, I think it's in your neck. I said, I'm dragging my leg. He goes, and I think it's in your neck. And he does this scan. And before I can get out of the hospital, they have a nurse come out and run to me and go, he needs to see you right now. And so it was a nuclear test and I had to go downtown to do that. So I had to drive back up north to where I live and go into his office. And he goes, you have severe cervical myelopathy. You have a spinal cord. You have bone on both sides of your spinal cord pinching in so hard, the spinal fluid can't move around. If you get hit or if you have a wreck right now, you're not going to live. They fixed that. My girls kept praying for me and Shauna. I'm healthy. I'm running 5 to 7 miles a day. I went back and took all the dopamine test, the nuclear test to see if my dopamine was really bad still. I go back, you don't have Parkinson's anymore. I'm like, wow, that's cool. And so this past summer, 2020 being as bad as it was in July, I had the deep brain stimulator taken out and the battery taken out of my chest. So if we ever do get to fly again, TSA can't make me touch my battery so they can sniff it. And, but I've just been getting healthier since, and we've come through it. And so you'll never pitch again. You only threw 88 to begin with, and now you're throwing 100. How is that possible when you were never supposed to pitch again? You had Parkinson's. Nobody gets over that. I'm healed. And I don't take any medicine for it. I don't have the stimulator anymore. And I don't shake. I don't have bad balance. I can smell. I can dress myself, which my wife appreciates. And miracles, guys, miracles.
That's amazing. That's awesome, Mr. Morris. Are
So
you
that
still?
was the rehab, and then the faith chapter after that. Chapters 9 and 10, the book, I think are going to blow people away.
We're gonna have to pick that up for
Because
sure.
that's the other thing I wanted. That's the other thing I wanted to say to you guys. Along with chronic illness, addiction doesn't know any color. It doesn't care if you're gay, straight, purple, black, polka dot. It doesn't care. Doesn't care if you're rich. Doesn't care if you're poor. If it comes after you, it comes after you. And I made a promise, just like I did to those kids, with one of the ladies that worked there, one of the counselors, and she said, because of your platform, when you get out, write a book and talk about how bad it is. So I did.
That's fantastic. Are you still in Reagan County?
I'm in San Antonio now. I'm where
Okay.
my one and only grandchild is.
Oh, good for you. That's awesome. That's fantastic. I know your oldest son is a lawyer now, correct?
He is a lawyer. He works for the DA's office.
That's great. That's very cool. Are you still teaching or coaching now, or are you retired?
Pretty much retired. And I want to speak again, and I want to get out there, and I want people to read the book because I think it's important to know that you can be down in the farthest recesses of your mind and come out and be fine.
Yeah.
That if you expect good, good will happen. If you expect bad, bad will happen. But all of it's been an amazing journey. And just to go back to my son for a second, he was the one guy who told President Bush, he goes, I hate baseball. I'm going to be a lawyer when he was 10.
I love that story. I love that story. I know that was probably embarrassing for you at the time, but I got such a kick out of that story.
Man, President of the United States loves baseball. Baseball sucks. Great.
He's a straight shooter, right?
Yeah.
He is a straight shooter. He tells it like it is.
Do another one. I got some just kind of self-indulgent questions I wanted to ask you about baseball and stuff. Was Royce Clayton really your biggest strikeout? I mean, he was probably your first big strikeout in the majors, but was he would you consider him your biggest strikeout?
You know what? Just being there was a blast for me. I don't know if there was a big strikeout. I struck out Frank Thomas. That was awesome. And
Shoot,
That's a little bit bigger.
That's
Struck
quite a
out.
bit bigger. Yeah.
and I struck out one of the cleanup hitter for the Angels at the time. And I can't recall his last name, but the bases were loaded and I came in and struck him out.
Nice.
And just being a part of that, being able to go back to Fenway at 35 and be on that field when I got to watch from the rafters when I was a 10-year-old all-star playing baseball and getting to watch Hank Aaron play
Oh man.
and then being on that field years later. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was probably a pretty big hit for you this week or this past week, hearing about his passing, right?
I have no idea, and I will never know what he went through to get to where he got. But the fact that he had to put up with everything he did outside of baseball and even with people in baseball and still go out every day and attack it like he did, it's one of the classiest people I've ever known.
It's funny because we were just talking about that on our last show. We were kind of having a tribute to Hammer and Hank, and that was a testament to how many threats he was getting every day. I heard something like 3,000 letters on a daily basis when he was in pursuit of the Babes record. We can't even fathom that.
No.
What was your so? You kind of answered already, but was Fenway your favorite stadium to play in, or did you have another favorite stadium?
I think sentimentally Fenway, just
Okay.
because I'd lived up in Connecticut, got to see him when I was 10, and I got to be on that field. And Yankee Stadium, when it was old Yankee Stadium, being out there with the bleacher creatures, that was fun.
Yeah. Did they heckle you pretty
America
good?
and looking at all the lines.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It wasn't even bad. So we're there for the 4-day stand, right?
Yeah.
And on the fourth day, I've stayed in left field every day during batting practice. On the fourth day, Roberto Hernandez, my best friend in the big leagues, calls me over to right field and he goes, "It's your turn, rookie." I'm like, great. And they start hollering, "Morris, Morris." I'm like, "I'm not turning around." He goes, "If you don't turn around, they're going to keep doing it." And I turn around, they go, "You suck. It's a great story, but you suck."
That's great.
At least they acknowledged it was a great
And
story.
he goes, "Yeah," he goes, "That's all you get? Get out of here. Go back to right field." So it was fun. I didn't get heckled bad. But if you can get cursed by people at Fenway and Yankee Stadium, you have some tough skin because they know stuff
Yeah.
I never even knew how to say.
Kind of leads up to my last question, and then we'll let you go. Unless Sandy, you got any others?
I guess I kind of wanted to go back, just kind of backtracking. I guess we're kind of all over the place with the interview, but how did the Rookie the movie come about? Did you? I know you had a book, The Oldest Rookie. Was it based off of that, and Disney approached you, or did you approach Disney? How did that all come about?
There were people in Hollywood talking to my agent before I ever got called up. And when I get called up, Bill Plaschke for the LA Times writes this huge article on a Sunday paper. My third night in the big leagues, they had to change my name in the hotel because there were people trying to call all night, trying to do movies and books and documentaries. So to answer your question, both were done at the same time. I met everybody in Hollywood because I was out there for 4 days with playing the Angels. And people were wanting to add on all kinds of stuff. And when we walked into Disney, we're walking across the grounds in Burbank, and Steve looks at me and goes, "What do you want out of this movie?" I said, "I want a movie about kids who are counted out, who just need a little push to see how good they can be." And I said, "And with older people, I want there to be a storyline that it doesn't matter how young or old you are, we can go back and achieve that dream, because you don't want to wake up one day and go, what if?" And so we walked into the president of Disney's office, and he repeats almost everything I say walking across the grounds. And I looked at Steve and I went, "They have microphones everywhere. They're Disney."
That's
And he
awesome.
laughed at me, but I was sold before I ever walked out of the office. They want to do it exactly like I had it in my mind, and I appreciated that.
Did they lean on you, like for information or for accuracy throughout the process?
Oh, I was there when Dennis signed on, and there was a lot of people that wanted to play me, and I never understood that at the time. I'm like, why? Because everybody wants to be a baseball player at some point in their lives. But the day Dennis signs, he calls me up, and I go over to his house in Brentwood, and I'm playing catch with Dennis Quaid in his front yard. I'm petting the dog. Jack comes in, and I get in the car after we play catch and everything, and I call my mom, and I go, "Guess where I am?" And I tell her, and she goes, "You suck."
That's awesome. He's one of my favorite
So
actors. I love
it was
him.
fun.
Yeah.
He was, you know what? I met a lot of people in Hollywood over the period of time, and he treated me with class and dignity, and we had a good time together.
That's really cool. Yeah. He's spoke very highly of you in all of his interviews and things, and promo for the film. The last thing I want to ask you is, Hollywood can kind of turn into a monster and kind of take on a life of its own, and it has a reputation for taking stories and making it what is most marketable and what it wants to make it. Would you have been okay if they insisted on taking the story and making it into a PG-13 or R-rated movie of some sort? I mean, Disney kind of did that a little bit with Invincible. They
Right.
still did the movie, and I think that was more of a PG-13 movie. There's curse words in it and some kind of adult situations and things like that. I think his story maybe lent a little bit more to that. But,
Yeah.
what are your feelings towards that? Would you just, like, put a complete kibosh on it, or what?
I never had to do anything. Dennis was afraid because there were no curse words in it that people, he goes, "When I take my son to the movies, I go to sleep if it's G-rated." And so they sent he and I on the Disney jet around the country to San Francisco and Seattle and Portland and Boston, New York, Florida, and different places across the country to screen it with adults. And so we would introduce the movie, they would watch it, and they found out that the adults liked it more than the kids did. And it brought people together. And so after that, there was no more worry about it being G-rated.
All right, Jim. One last question. Kind of plug for your book. You can pick a book up at dreammakers.com. What if there's one lasting message from that book? What would that be?
We can do a whole lot more than we give ourselves credit for. And we need to quit listening to outside voices and listen to what's inside of us so we can flourish.
All right.
That's awesome. Well, hey, Mr. Morris, thank you so much again for your time. We kept you. I always do this. We keep our guests way longer than I promise them for.
Yeah.
So thanks for being so cool
No
and
problem.
talking to us.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I've never met a person.
AJ, Andy, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I've never met a person who didn't like the movie and didn't like your story. So, again, thanks again for being with us here on the Small Market Podcast.
Thank you, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you. You too.
You too.